Welcome to another exciting meeting of the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission. Today is Monday, November 5th, 2018. And is there anyone here for public forum? If not, we'll proceed right along with paying our bills. Mr. Jennings, what have you got for us? Minutes or?
Sure, Paul. I'd like to make a motion. We accept the minutes of the September 5th, 2018 Water and Sewer Commissioners Workshop.
Second.
Any comments on those meetings? Everybody got a chance to read them?
I have.
If no comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
Did you get that, Sue? One abstention.
Well, actually, I wasn't there, so.
Next, I'd like to make a motion. We accept the minutes of October 22nd, 2018 Water and Sewer Commissioner meeting.
Are you a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
3 ayes and 2 abstentions, is that right? Okay. Thanks, Ms. Jennings.
Next, I make a motion. We accept the warrants as printed as follows. Beta, $10,234.64. WV Mason, $40.70. WV Mason, $13.49. McClure Engineering, $543.75. Bigelow Electric, $1,885. KP Law, $400. Commissioner's salary, $400. And Peter Boyer mileage reimbursement, $339.19, for a total of $13,856.77.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on any of them? No? 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 Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 You got more?
Nope.
That's it. All right. Well, our first thing on the agenda tonight is Valley Green Grow. So you would step forward, please, and tell us what's happening.
Mr. Chair,
Yep,
Valley Green Grow is scheduled at 6:40.
yeah,
Your first item under new business is a disclosure on my behalf as part of something that Valley Green Grow is discussing through town, is trying to find a site for off-site parking. They've approached my father about possibly renting property from him
yeah.
for that off-site parking on some property he owns on Route 20. So because of that, if you would like me to participate in the discussion of Valley Green Grow moving forward, I filled out a form, a section form 19 from the state.
Okay.
So if the commission doesn't believe that there's, how do they word it? That the financial interest is not so substantial as deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services, which the municipality may expect from the employee, then we'll be able to continue to participate in the discussion moving forward. If you think that the financial interest creates, I guess, a conflict, then I will have to recuse myself moving forward.
All right, without a motion, I'll just ask if anybody is opposed to Peter taking place in our discussion.
I'll put that in the form of a motion.
All right, go ahead.
Doesn't
Sure.
seem to be, again, just what you had just said, Peter.
So the commission does not.
Determining that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee.
Do I have a
Second.
second on that?
Second.
Any more discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay.
So,
So-
okay.
Moving forward, Dan Leary is here to, on behalf of Valley Green Grow, to give the commission an overview of what the project is and what they're gonna be looking for from you for possible water and sewer services.
Good evening, Dan Leary with Valley Green Grow. I'd like to just start off by passing around some handouts.
to it? Just for the record, 6:40, do we want to wait?
I mean, if you wanna wait a
It is
couple
a
minutes.
scheduled appointment, I don't know.
It's not.
I don't want you to have to backtrack, repeat yourself, and, you know.
It's not a formal hearing, but it is a scheduled appointment, so.
All right, this is from Valley Greenville. Oh, all of them.
Check that out.
One moment.
Give me a copy.
I'll just if I'm not here.
You're alone, right? There's no one else coming with you?
Just-
Yeah,
just me,
okay.
sir.
Just making sure,
I appreciate
we
your
have another
patience.
minute or so to kill.
Yep.
In case anybody interested in, gets here and the conversation's half over, you know, so. Close enough? You happy with that?
I think
It's
we're
a
good.
minute, and I don't hear any footsteps, so. Why don't you begin, please?
Thank you. Again, my name is Dan Leary. I'm a project manager with Valley Green Grow. And I guess I'm flying solo tonight, representing Valley Green Grow. So my hopes is to maybe provide a high-level update of, or overview of what we're planning to do with the project as it relates to water and sewer services. And I would say that I can field some questions, anything that's really technical in nature. We've got plenty of engineers on the team, and we'd be happy to get our responses back to you as soon as possible. So,
Excuse me, if I may ask, Dan, now, what's your position with the company, and what licenses do you hold?
I'm a project manager, and I hold no licenses.
Okay?
No licenses germane to the
Which is fine,
project.
that's
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
So maybe the first place to start is, what I've handed out is a sheet from our site plan review. It's page 8 of 15 in the site plan review, and for the last couple of months, we've been working with and in front of the planning board, working on a site plan review. This is the application, this is the sheet of the site plan review itself that talks about and depicts where the water services would be with respect to the project. So if I could just provide an overview. So this is a site, as you know, at 44 Old Worcester Road, and it is Charlton Orchards, and what we're proposing to do is build about a 1 million square foot cannabis cultivation and processing facility on that site. And to orient you to the site, what you see here is most of the boundaries of the property, and the orange blocks that you see in the center of it, that's the actual facility, surrounded by perimeter road, water recharge cisterns, and at a very high level, that's what it is. So the operation itself it's a hydroponic indoor cultivation facility. It's inside what's called closed greenhouses. So while it's very water intensive, over 85% of the water that's used for irrigation is recycled within the facility. We can talk about that a little bit more later. In general, the project proposes to use primarily rainwater. Rainwater is the primary source of the irrigation water for the project, with supplemental water coming from the municipal city water. So as a summary, and maybe as a way to explain the water in, water out with the project, I've prepared this other slide, which also will be delivered to the planning board tomorrow. And it attempts to summarize, like I said, water coming in, how it's stored, what processes the water's used for, and how water goes out. So it's meant to be a mass balance sort of chart here.
Excuse me for a second, Dan, do you have any extras for people in the audience?
My apologies, I didn't bring enough extras.
Okay.
Do you have one, Dan?
No, we wish, that's
Well,
fine.
thank you.
I can look at something else.
And again, this,
Mr. Chair, if you like, we can keep a set of this and make them available to any residents who are in the audience after the meeting,
Sure.
or tomorrow.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Dan.
And this document will be probably posted to the website through the planning board tomorrow as well. They'll receive this in the morning. So starting with the main sources of water coming in is combustion condensate water. So this is water that's coming through a cogeneration facility that's on the site. Is sort of a high level. The cogeneration facility, it's up to 18 megawatts, which will be providing power for the greenhouses, for the operation, as well as heat through the waste heat from the cogeneration, which would be used to dehumidify and condition the air inside the greenhouses. And that is powered by the natural gas, which would be supplied from a Kinder Morgan tap of the pipeline on the premise, on the site. So the combustion condensate is just literally water coming from the combustion process. That's probably the simplest one to start with. That water is recaptured and put through cooling towers, which is part of the cogeneration process. And while the vast majority of that water is just constantly being recycled, it evaporates as necessary. Some of that would be flushed, and it would go through a pretreatment process and would come out through the city sewer. So that is the one area of the process that we believe would require the industrial discharge permit, industrial sewer permit process. So we anticipate engaging in that part of the process per your bylaw.
If I may, Dan, how many gallons a day do you think is going to come off that during peak time?
My apologies, sir, which part, the waste coming into the sewer?
No, the cooling towers. When you go and then go to pre-treat, then it goes into the sewer. How many gallons a day do you estimate that's going to be?
We've estimated that to be under 1,000 gallons per day, likely in the 500 to 600 gallon range.
Thank you very much.
Sure. The next part of major water in we show on this diagram is city water. And I think I'm going to hit that topic last just because it's a little bit easier to talk about rainwater first, and then end with city water and talk about the lines that may be available to us. So with respect to the rainwater, this whole project is basically a rainwater collection and redistribution project. 65% of all the rainwater that hits the site, the greenhouses, the 1 million square foot facility, has to be recharged by law back into the ground to protect the environment, which it would be returned to. The other 35% is going to be captured and stored in cisterns that we have on the site. And if you look at the site plan, these are up at about the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock position of the facility. And these cisterns, they're sized to be up to 2 million gallons, depending on the exact configuration that's utilized. But these cisterns are really the lifeblood because they're designed to hold about 2 months' worth of water storage that'll be used. The thing about hydroponic growing in this type of plant is that rainwater is probably the most valuable water that we could possibly collect to put into it because it's very, very pure and requires very little additional treatment in order to be used by the plants. When we talk about the city water, next we'll talk about what we have to do to city water in order to make it usable by the plants. So the water, which is, again, collected during rain events, and put into the cisterns, and is constantly circulated in order to keep that water healthy. These are sealed cisterns, by the way, they're capped. About 30,000 gallons of water a day will leave those cisterns and go into what you see there as the greenhouse irrigation and cleaning loop. That's the lowest orange hexagon on the drawing. So once it leaves this is now processed water, which is coming into the greenhouse. And like I said earlier, about 85% of the water is recycled at this point and goes back into the greenhouse. But literally what's happening is it's mixing with fertilizers, with nutrients. It's being delivered by pipes and irrigation emitters to the plants themselves. Some of the water drips out, it's an overflow, gets recaptured. Most of the water's evaporated, it's transpired from the plants and is recaptured through condensate processes. And that water remains within the greenhouse, and it's, again, treated and filtered through UV systems and other types of filtration to make sure that the water that we're using for the plants is at the highest quality and purity. In fact, it's very important for us to recycle our water because it's extremely valuable once it's water with the nutrients. Once the nutrients are put into it and it's being recycled, it's really it's the lifeblood of the operation, the water. So again, because we're putting 30,000 gallons of fresh water into this greenhouse system a day, 30,000 gallons is leaving somehow. And that's leaving in the form of evaporation, like we said, through transpiration. It gets filtered, it goes air that is filtered out and exhausted outside the greenhouse after being filtered. It also leaves in the form of plant waste because here we are growing plants that get harvested and water goes and makes plants. So that's the high level of the rainwater. So in the final piece, which is the city water, we consider city water to be supplementary in that we don't anticipate needing to use a lot of it. Rather, we believe that we may, in speaking with the Southbridge Water Department, may be more like required to use a minimum amount per day in order to keep the lines, the turnover rates as required for the lines that we'd like to tap into. But the city water, in order for that to come into our greenhouse operation, actually has to be treated to remove the fluoride and the chlorine, because that's not very good for the plants. So again, we don't want to use more water coming into that process than is absolutely necessary. The other uses of that city water, besides the greenhouse operation, are for the people, the employees that are going to work there. This is the potable water for them. We have a cafeteria at the site, so that full food services. When employees come to the site every day, they stay there for the day. They have their lunch, their breakfast, their dinner if they're there during those times of the day. City water is also going to be required for the fire suppression. That'll be required for parts of the greenhouse. Not the entire 1 million square feet. We don't anticipate will require fire suppression and sprinklers, but certain pieces of the operation will require it, as well as a perimeter loop with hydrants around the whole facility. So with all that being said, again, to summarize, water coming in through combustion, condensate water, some makeup water from the city, rainwater, and then the water exiting is through city sewer, some evaporation, some plant waste, and I guess I should have mentioned, along with rainwater, is the stormwater recharge, because again, 65% of the water that hits the site gets returned right back into the ground there at the site. So that's hopefully a high-level overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, so you're not planning on using any of the current wells that are there?
It's possible that the wells could be used during a construction stage. I can envision them possibly being used for dust mitigation measures, but we're trying not to use those wells and expand what we believe is the contamination plume that's underneath them.
So, once tied to city water, what's the intent with the wells?
We would not be using those wells anymore.
Okay. What's your total usage for the day, on any given day for production? Make up water regardless where it comes from?
So we'd estimate, so for the greenhouse operation, it's 30,000 gallons. For the potable water for the facility, probably under 5,000, probably closer to 4,000 gallons. And cooling towers, I guess that, I have to do the evaporation rates, but it's in the tens of thousands of gallons that would be running through the cooling towers, which again is supplied from the combustion condensate.
On the plans, you call out that they had the 4-inch domestic capped on property. Are you intending on tying to it later?
The intent with the, so the 4-inch and the 8-inch pipes are for,
The 8-inch is coming off Route 20.
right,
That appears to be your fire loop, if I read these right, although you didn't provide details with it. You have an 8-inch, a 12 by 12 by 8 T coming off of Route 20, correct? And that's gonna be a
Correct.
fire loop coming around the property. There's a couple noted hydrants, there's some other Ts, some stubs, and then over by the old Worcester roadside, it says proposed 4-inch stub with cap to connect to future water line to be installed by others.
right, so the,
So that's just gonna remain dead?
no, so what's not understood by our team at this point is what's the availability and when would that Old Worcester Road water line, the 8-inch line that's being proposed to come down Old Worcester Road, when is that availability? We believe it's gonna be a couple years, or 18 months. It's not really known to us at this time. So we're anticipating running this 4-inch line and likely using that for our potable water source, again, for the facility potable water. We believe that's got a high turnover rate. That might be the most suitable place to draw for the operation, for the facility, for the employees. But that being said, it's not clear and it's maybe unlikely that that would provide enough pressure for our fire suppression system. It's also not clear how early that would be available. So we looked at the 12-inch line along Route 20 as being an alternative and possibly something that might be available more immediately. And that is an example of something that, because of we believe it's currently it's not charged. And since nobody's using it, we might be the only ones using it on that line. It might be more appropriate for that to, besides providing the pressure for the fire suppression, it might also be good for the backup or supplement for the irrigation water. Because we believe, after speaking with Southbridge, that this is the line where we'd have to have a minimum draw that could be up to 5,000 gallons per day. Again, for the water turnover rates.
In blue around here, they're different shapes and they're throughout the whole property. And it just says see detail, see, they appear to be some kind of pump station maybe?
They're water recharge, so it's a subsurface,
Do you have
Field.
page sheet 2 that has all the details on it?
yeah, it's part of the site plan. I just,
Don't worry about it, you can provide
Yeah.
it. So in the 18-month period while you're waiting for domestic off of Old Worcester Road, what's your intent with the wells? Are you gonna do any studies? If you are gonna use them?
so they're public wells that have a flow rate that seems acceptable for very early, that's not, doesn't seem to have the flow rates for fire suppression. We could use it for irrigation water if it was necessary, but we don't feel that that's gonna be necessary given the site work, the rainwater collection we'll have, and especially if the Route 20 source is available. The wells could be used for a potable water source. If it came down to it, again, we just don't understand enough about the timing of when the water might be available at Old Worcester Road.
So I guess ultimately, do you anticipate what volume you'd be drawing out of those wells and what impact it would have to the surrounding wells in the area?
Yes.
You guys have already done that study?
We haven't done the study. We've got a licensed site professional that's reviewed the documentation around the wells. And we've looked at what impacts it could have on the plume, which was our primary decision not to continue to use them any more than is necessary, is to not make the situation any worse than it currently is. But that being said, we believe in our analysis that our proposed use of that well might be less than the current use that it has right now as the source for the orchard.
Timeframe do you have in mind to be operational?
We're anticipating, once we get through the site plan review process, state approvals and everything, being in construction probably most of next year, and hopefully being operational in pieces, but as early, hopefully the earliest piece would be Q3, Q4 next year.
So you're expecting to be ready for the water before it gets there? Coming down Old Worcester Road anyway, so.
Are we?
Well, we're talking a year and a half, perhaps, and that's anybody's best guess, you know, it's kind of up to ExxonMobil. But by that time, you would be ready for it,
Yes,
you know.
yes, sir.
And you guys have already chosen any kind of removal system for the chloramines and or fluoride?
We've discussed that with the engineers, and they'll be preparing their report and filing the submittals that show all that. We just didn't bring that with us tonight.
What about fire flows?
What specifically about fire flow, sir?
Pre-construction fire flows. You're planning on drawing off a main out on Route 20. I understand. Are you guys trying to schedule something out there so you know what your system needs to be at for fire suppression?
Yes, so as part of the, that's possibly a step further out than where we're at now, is we're still going through the site plan review. We've sat down with the building commissioner and the fire department to talk about that, and we're still finalizing exactly what fire suppression requirements are required for this use. So based on that, we'll.
Because that's an inactive line, so that line would have to be pressure
Yes.
tested and or disinfected prior to any fire flows being done, and then use them to the rest of the system.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you guys have come up with the cost for that? It's not a line we're using.
I don't understand that.
Water main has to be disinfected before it can be put in use, or any other part of the active system. Correct, Phil? That's all inactive right there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So
So
that-
you,
From about
Prior to
CBS.
fire flow tests being conducted, that part of the system would have to be disinfected. And I would assume pressure tested. It's been a long time since it's been pressure tested.
Yes, so in our discussions with Southbridge, that, and the superintendent, we discussed that, and we didn't get into the details of who and where or how.
Okay.
I imagine that would all be part of the water blow-off agreement, if we were to make one, in that
Water
situation.
blow-off wouldn't have anything to do with it.
Why not? Wouldn't that all be
line's
part
gotta
of the
be
structure of the
accepted.
deal?
No, the line's gotta be accepted before they can even run a flow test on it.
so I think the biggest thing Mr. McKenzie's asking is that you're gonna incur any and all costs associated with activating that line in order to do the pressure testing, disinfecting, and then do the flow test, so you can design your sprinkler system based on available flows.
You don't know what the available flows are right now because the line's not active.
And they're still in the process of figuring out what type of system they need for the, so there's a few things up in the air that they're working on, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to be fair to Dan, Dan is, you know, I think we're almost getting in the Greek here with Dan because of pressures, water pressures. Do you know how much water pressure you're gonna need for your fire flows?
I've got a team
He
that
wouldn't,
knows
the
those.
system's gonna dictate it, Rob.
So,
That's what I'm saying. And we don't know what it gives out there.
these are discussions that your group hasn't had yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just so you can just take this back to your group, is Charlton Water and Sewer's goal, number one goal is we need water to be up and running as soon as possible on Old Worcester Road because of the contamination there. And it just happens that going by this property, you are in that high area for, as far as service goes. We want to get those people serviced as soon as possible, and I think the construction people, have, you know, they're saying Old Worcester Road should be complete by the end of next year. We'll see. But that's what we're hoping. One of the things you need to know is your group is, yes, there is a water line in Route 20. In fact, that water line goes all the way to Oxford. But that water line is not active. The commission has not taken a vote to activate it. We have already been told by Southbridge that if it is going to be activated, we can only activate it to the corner of Route 20 and Old Worcester Road, right there by Carroll Hill Road. The other point is that water line that is inactive right now is a 12-inch line, which has a very high capacity. And if flows aren't of a fairly high rate, then the water in that line is going to go stale. So that's what, we've had a situation like that in the past, and we had a developer come forward and say, I will pay for a blow-off to keep the water fresh. But the key thing is that make sure you tell this back to your water people, is that there's going to be an issue here with pressure, water pressure, because our tank runs somewhere around 990 feet. Our newer tank runs, which is not online, isn't expected to go online in quite a few years, goes up to like 1,008 feet. So I believe your building is somewhere around 770 feet elevation. So between the differential is, you're not gonna have much water pressure there, just because that's the nature of the beast. In fact, Southbridge made us put within our agreement that any property of a certain elevation, that we agree that property owner has to put a booster pump in. And I believe it's, I think, right at the end of not Sturbridge, but North Side Road, one of those properties up there, almost at the, is right at the pinnacle to where a pressure pump would have to be put in. So your property goes down and then back up again. So your water people are gonna have to give this some real hard look, because I know for me as a commissioner, as far as turning on the water line going down Route 20 that goes by your property, it's way down on the bottom of my list. I don't know about the rest of these people here, but it's way down towards the bottom. There's going to be water, and there should be sufficient water over there on Old Worcester Road, which is an 8-inch line, not a 12-inch line, but I see in your notes here that your people who drew this up, they're talking about an 8-inch minimum draw. So what may end up happening, because we do have a property that's currently connected, it's not connected to the water line, but they ended up putting in their own cistern and their own set of pumps to create the fire suppression system. So that may be a consideration for you people. But Dan, let me turn back a little bit here. You talked about this 4-inch line. What is that 4-inch line supposed to represent?
That's the line that you were just referring to. It says capped. It's the one coming up L. Turner Drive from, so the proposed, where it
Old
says the
Worcester Road.
4-inch stub.
Oh, okay, so,
That-
okay, just to let your people know.
Yeah.
What's going to be out there on Old Worcester Road is an 8-inch
Is it-
line.
yes, we know that,
So you
yeah.
could come up with an 8-inch line. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
where your service could come from.
Yes, sir, I agreed, and just to follow up on a couple of your comments, so the fire suppression with the cisterns is something we discussed with
Yeah.
the deputy chief, because
Right.
that, it seems obvious, if we have a couple million gallons of water being stored up there, we ought to be able to make that protected.
Exactly, but I was just
Yeah.
thinking, if you have a
And-
66-day drought, then you're out of your water on that 2 million gallons.
Right.
So I'm not anticipating that, but
Yeah.
who knows? We've seen some dry summers. The-
Mr. Chair, just,
Yeah.
the town of Southbridge just said that that 8-inch main on Old Worcester Road is not capable of fire suppression.
Then they will have to figure that out, and Southbridge will have to explain that to their engineers. Okay, because it would seem, I don't want, I gotta be careful with my language here. It would seem to be not in our best interest for us to be putting in that infrastructure and then tell us we couldn't use it for fire suppression, unless something else could be done to make it so we could use it for fire suppression.
It may be when our tank comes online.
Okay, now is our pump station that's being designed and being put in right now, does it have booster fire suppression pumps that are also gonna be?
It has a third pump that can come on in the case of an emergency, yes.
Okay, all right, so
to
there
help
it is
with
right there, okay. All right, so,
But you also need the additional storage of our tank as well. But
right, so the point is, let's let,
Yeah.
let those engineers figure that out. Dan, I got a question, is you're gonna have approximately, I hear 300 workers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, where are they gonna park their car on this site?
The parking lot's shown up in the north side of the site, right at the 12 o'clock position. It's 260-ish, just 264 parking spaces.
It's up on the north side,
Just to the north of the highest orange greenhouse you see there, there's 260 parking spaces.
okay, when I looked at those things, they're all like herringbone, if you wanna
It's
call
a
that?
scale.
Okay, I thought those were some type of underground diffusers to shed the water, but that's the parking right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it.
What method are you gonna use to collect the rainwater? Coming off the roof, so, you know,
Yeah, so rainwater coming in for use in our greenhouse operation will be coming off the roofs. So the greenhouse is a giant sawtooth configuration, and every 32 feet or so is a gutter, and all those gutters are just gonna connect into
so if you
the
can
storage.
get from the roof 35% of everything that lands on that property, you don't have to bother with the rest. That goes naturally back into the ground, and you use the 35% you collected. Do I have that right?
I don't think so, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's, so for every gallon that we collect,
Yeah,
let me say it a different way. For every 100 gallons we collect off the roof, in the parking lot and any impervious surface, 65 of those gallons have to be put back into the ground,
right.
and 35 of those gallons can go into our cistern.
Okay, I'm thinking of the part that you're not collecting off the roof. Water hits there naturally, that adds up to a certain percentage, which
Oh, it does.
goes toward your 35%. And how are you gonna collect it off the parking lot? You're gonna have to filter it somehow, because if the parking lot's gonna be filled with oil and grease and things like that.
Yeah, we're not using, so the water that's coming off the parking lot goes through an ordinary stormwater recharge system. It's not
Okay.
coming into to this water, and it's got oil water separators because it's coming off of
So
a,
what I'm getting at is if you collect all the water from the roof, you've probably got the 35% right there. You don't need to collect much more.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. But I think I see your point. But most of the roof, the water that's collected on the roof can't come to our rainwater collection system. It has to be recharged into the ground, because it's,
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
of all the property you've got, as long as 30, you can only use 35%. I didn't know that if you take a certain amount off the roof, 35% of that water had to go into the ground as well.
Correct. So of the total site, we have the 94 acres.
Yeah.
About a quarter of it is a developed facility, and that's where we can collect, that's an impervious surface that we're collecting the rainwater from. The rest of the property doesn't weigh into that equation. We can't collect its rainwater from it.
Mr. Chair? Floor drains in the facility, greenhouses, the processing room, the waste room and all that, where are those gonna go?
That's, excuse me, in our diagram, that's part of the recycle loop you see around the
So that all
greenhouse.
gets recycled?
What physically happens is, in each one of these greenhouses, there's an irrigation technical room, and it's got a makeup water storage in it, about 30 to 45,000 gallons, full of fertilizer and recaptured water. The water goes out through irrigation emitter systems to the plants. Any water that overflows from that comes back through a drain and comes right back to that starting point. To go through filtration and cleansing first.
So we don't have to worry about any floor drains being tied into the sewer?
Not into the greenhouse, no.
Okay. What about in your process area? Is that?
In the process area, I mean, there will be locations, there's any place that's sanitary. So there is a kitchen, there'll be oil separator system, a grease trap, installed with the kitchen. But there's restrooms,
Okay. So
the usual,
so when you say sanitary, it's truly sanitary waste only?
yes, from people.
And then I forwarded you that section from our sewer use bylaws,
Yes.
correct? And you've reviewed that?
Yes, and so to be clear about that, the section 165-30 prohibited waste, we will be in full compliance with that.
Okay.
And as 165-32, the specific prohibitions, we will be in full compliance with that.
Okay.
And then the industrial sewer discharge permit would be the next course for us to follow.
Great.
Mr. Chairman?
Uh,
Dan, kind of give us an overview of worker pulls into the parking lot, gets out of his car, and now he's coming to work. What's he go through? I mean, let's say, because I think I don't know how many different processes you have there, but do some workers have to do different things? Do they have to dress differently? Is it like a clean room? Do they put on gowns and caps and booties? Exactly what happens?
Yes, sir. So approximately 30 of the 300 people that are going to come to work here on a daily basis are administrative, finance, administrative, HR. They'll come dressed to work much like we are and go to a certain section of what's called a head house facility. That's sort of the central part of this. Everybody coming into the facility, including them, has to go through a sanitization station, but they'll stay in their regular clothes. They wash off their hands. The key thing about a facility like this is to keep germs out and, to keep tight security and control over everything that's happening inside it. The majority of people coming to work at this facility will then go into shower rooms. They'll shower down, they'll change into full Tyvek suits and clothes. It's basically a clean room environment. So men and women, men's room, women's room, and they'll go from there to their workstation. Some of probably the smallest number will actually go into the greenhouse. They're integrated pest management field inspections. They're responsible for making sure that there's nothing getting into the greenhouses, nothing going on in the greenhouses that shouldn't be there. A section of them will be in harvesting and collecting the plants that are ready for harvest. Every day of the week, there'll be a section being harvested. And then another block of personnel will be in the post-harvest room So that's the processing the plant, drying operations, and extraction operations, packaging, shipping, those types of things.
And so a majority of the workers, probably 75–80% of them, they're gonna be showering before they start work.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so they go through their day, and I understand, they shower because everyone, you're looking at zero threshold. So they put on their uniforms or their gowns in their booties. So when they get out of work, do they shower again, or do they pretty much say,
No.
I've been clean all day and I'm still okay?
No, they just shower coming in.
Okay.
The whole intent is to keep, once they come in, they have to come in clean.
In other words, we're not gonna bring anything in. Leave with whatever you wanna leave, but you don't want to bring anything in.
You can't leave with anything you want to leave.
Well, I'm sorry, when I said that's
Touche,
kind of
yes.
loose lip, but, yeah, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Dan, I know you're not the design guy on this, but why is there such an immense elevation difference in all these sewer manholes? And I know you're probably trying to pick up, to get the pitch going out. And I know you didn't provide details, but is there outside or inside drops associated with all these? Most of these are 6-foot elevation changes, which is gonna be a huge cause of hydrogen sulfide gas on the sanitary sewer, which is gonna in fact impact our system.
Sir, I'll ask the question of the engineer and get you an answer. What specific ones do you see?
Well, I don't have station numbers, but I'll start at, approximate location of potable water, connection, starting there. Head house, connection, you have an elevation of 875 and 869. You follow that sewer line down. All the invert out, ins and outs are a difference of about 5 feet. So it says to me you have they're all drops into the sewer.
Okay.
Are they drops onto a table, or are they inside or outside drops?
I can get you an answer for that.
Thank you.
See what you're talking about.
Okay, if the commissioners don't have any more questions for Dan, we'll ask people in the audience what questions they have and address to Dan. Any questions back there? Yeah, you're
Yes.
first.
My name is Ed Kochling. I live on Hanson Road. I have a number of questions. I am an engineer. I work for the city of Worcester. I deal extensively in road work, sewer, water. A couple things come to mind here. For example, I'll start with the sprinkler system. The developer is indicating that only partial or portions of the building will be sprinklered, reducing their load for water volume as well as water pressure. I'm sort of curious about that because I'm pretty sure the state regulations require any commercial building over 7,500 square feet must have full sprinklers. I don't understand why, I mean, this project has come to planning board a couple of times, why they haven't figured out what their sprinkler needs are. I mean, you hire a sprinkler contractor, they do a design, and then they determine what you need for the volumes. I mean, to come months later and still not know is sort of baffling. As far as
Well,
the
Mr.
other
Chair.
water requirements,
We have no, or I don't think we have any purview over what the sprinkler design is going to be. All we do is we have some oversight over what is currently available, or would be available in the roadway, in the main.
Yeah, I think what he's
So-
getting
So
is
my
the
point
demand.
that it's a non-starter, I mean, you have to, when you're gonna build a project of this magnitude, or any magnitude for that matter, or any size, first order of business is, what do you have for utilities? So you're gonna, in this particular case, you're over 7,500 square feet, you're a commercial building. You must have sprinklers in the entire building. You must have someone design a sprinkler system and start with, what are my water needs for this project? It's as simple as that, and then you work backwards. So, I'm not familiar with the town system, but I mean, I believe we are gonna have this new line that comes in, an 8-inch line coming in on Old Worcester Road. We obviously have a system, a 12-inch line that was put in, what, 10 years ago? Is that about right for Route 20?
12 to
When
15.
Amarello did the project? It has never been turned on, so there's gonna be an extensive, I mean, how many miles is it? Is it 2, 3 miles, that system, that line? So,
Longer.
that's a pretty tall undertaking as far as just pressure testing, chlorinization, all that stuff. What happens if it doesn't pass the pressure test, for example? Now you're gonna be digging up Route 20 at a whole bunch of different places to fix it. Who's gonna pay for that?
If I may, just for your information, it was
Yeah.
probably 4 years ago. We have pressure tested that line all the way down to Hammond Hill Road.
Okay.
So it has been pressure tested that far. And then from Hammond Hill Road, it then takes Oxbow right to the Oxford line. But we didn't pressure test that. At least, I don't think we did. But anyways.
So I guess when a line hasn't been used or charged, okay, there's a lot of things that happen to the pipes.
Oh, of course.
For example, the rubbers, I'm assuming it was ductile iron,
Yeah.
class 51 pipe. The rubbers, I mean, if they've been sitting for that length of time, might all be bad. They might, so you really need to do another pressure test on that system in order to make sure that we're not paying for leaking water.
Oh, exactly.
Okay, so that's one thing. But what I'm sort of don't understand is how, the developer is coming here without any hard numbers. So sprinklers is one thing, the water's obviously a critical component to this. I'm in disagreement with their configuration and their numbers. For example, for wastewater, okay? The fact of the matter is that marijuana plants give off about a 1/4 gallon per square foot of grow material. There's a facility in Worcester, for example, they're 7,000 square feet. They produce 2,000 gallons a day of waste condensation. They have to change the air in the building between 3 and 10 times a day. I know this because they actually called me, I'm the inspector on the Route 20 sewer project, and they called me saying, hey, can we tie into the system sooner rather than later, because we're pumping, these tanks out that fill up twice a week with this condensate. So I'm looking at this project and I'm saying, well, okay, they have 1 million square feet of grow area. That at a 1/4 gallon, and that's being generous because I think it's a little over that, that's 250,000 gallons of condensate a day. So where's that all going? And I don't really think it's gonna go into the recharge system, because the truth is that the recharge system that has been designed here has not been substantiated that it will actually even work. You have to understand the project here is cutting the mountain peak off and pushing all this dirt and everything to the sides. You have no idea what's down 25 feet. I don't believe they've done any borings to see will that ground even percolate. The original geotechnical reports that were done clearly said that the material on site is really unusable for building per se. They have to build during the dry spells because once it gets wet, it's going to be like a clay glacial till material. So last I checked, to percolate through that, that's septic system kind of thing. That's not good. So there's a number of issues here that for wastewater and water that these guys, I think, are going about it all wrong. Let's start with, okay, what do you need? What do you need for water based on your sprinkler and the amount of people you have? Wastewater. Wastewater is not a tough calculation. It's Title V, right? So if you're a manufacturing business and you have a cafeteria, I believe it's 20 gallons per employee per day, right? Isn't that? Now, is that going to apply to this particular situation? Because this isn't your typical manufacturing facility, right? Everybody has to come in and take a shower. So what's that gonna do? Is there a factor for that? Because here's the thing, we have sewer over there, as far as my understanding is on the old Worcester Road, correct? And doesn't that go to a pump station?
Correct.
Is that true? So is that pump station gonna be able to handle this flow? And if they start to put condensate into that, because the condensate typically, condensate is typically acidic, you know what I mean? It has like, I think it's like a 6 or high 5 pH. So that's gonna be a problem to put into the town system. But what about this pump station that's under, what is it, what are its capacities, you know what I mean? So those are things that are pretty straightforward design engineering things to figure. You know how many employees, they're claiming they have 300. I'm not sure about that. I would tend to think what would be on the building permit that says occupancy, because if business is really good and they start bringing more employees in, there's no way to really, kind of say, hey, you can't have these extra employees, and now the wastewater system's gonna be impacted, right? if you have an occupancy from the building permit, that's the fire marshal saying, hey, you can have 500 employees here, and we know it's not gonna be any greater than that. So that's, I think, in my opinion, how you should look at this project. What is the occupancy gonna be on this 1 million square foot building? And then work your way back. Like I said, they're pretty straightforward calculations. To come down and, you know, this project is not new, it's been going on, and it's been the planning board 2 or 3 times, it's been through the selectment process for months. To come here and I mean, I don't get paid to be here. I'm doing my civic duty. I'm extremely worried about this project. I think it's not a good thing. With that said, to come down here again and find out that there's no calculations, how could that be?
Well, you can rest assured, sir, that this board isn't gonna do anything until we have, A, all the information. B, what we have determined tonight is there's gonna be an industrial permit that's gonna have to be issued to these people. The industrial permit, then their engineer will have to present all the information to our engineering, and then we'll make a decision based on that. I can tell you is that as far as availability of water, if at 300 workers at 20 gallons a worker, what's that? That's 6,000 gallons.
That's the wastewater figure, right?
That's the wastewater, is at 6,000. So if we're looking at the demand, and then if you're gonna add a shower and you add 30 or 40 gallons to that, so we're up to 11 or 12,000. Do we have that amount of water available? The answer is yes. Do we have that amount of space down at the sewer plant available? Without taking a hard look, more than likely we do. So this is something that they need to present to us. We need to take a hard look at it. We have to be fair and equitable to them, and we'll take it from there. But you can rest assured, at least from this seat, is nothing's going to go through here without it being looked at and looked at it through a fine tooth comb here. So, and again, it's a company that's coming to town. They're going to hire people. They're going to pay taxes. Hopefully, they're going to be good neighbors. And again, I have my own opinions. I think we as a commission have to follow all of our own rules. And if someone submits something and asks us for something, we can't arbitrarily say, well, we really don't like you, so you can't come. We will follow the rules and make sure that this is going to, from a point of view of water and sewer, it's safe, in that we do have everything available. But I look at this meeting here as the beginning of the process. This certainly isn't anywhere near the middle of the end, so. Mr. Chairman?
Dan, you going to add any answers for him that, other than what Rob has said?
No, sir, there was a lot of questions, a lot of comments. I disagree with much of it. Much of it we're answering and have been answering and will be answering in the planning board process. But I agree with every comment that this is the beginning of a process. There's a lot of due diligence and engineering and things, but I guess maybe understand from our perspective too that things happen in a logical progression where we don't have a site plan approved yet to get into some of these. There's just a lot of engineering. Once we get to that point, there's a lot of deep engineering that happens and designs to accomplish what we believe we can accomplish.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jerry Russell, Old Worcester Road, through the chair. Mr. Kochling has asked quite a few questions, and I think really pertinent to what your purview is. I think it would be important for Mr. Leary to address at least a few of them.
I guess, Dan, just I'm not trying to throw you out a life raft here, is if you have the ability to answer his questions, and quite a few of them are very technical, then go ahead and answer them. But at least you now know is when you get back to your home base is what these topics are, and all of those things that Ed had brought up, I'm certainly looking for those answers as well.
Sir, can we cover the top questions, because I think some of them were questions that I think are germane to this process, the others I'm not sure, so I don't want to
Sure.
presume you're gonna ask which
Exactly.
questions, yeah.
We only want to talk about water and sewer. Right, all right, so what's some of the top questions?
Yes.
What is the number that you're gonna ask for as far as your water demand, daily water demand? And then also, what is going to be and we will make that assumption as water demand is gonna be based also, that will give us the sewer demand. Then what you, like it was earlier said, is you're gonna have to present, the information through your engineer with specs on what this industrial waste is gonna look like that you're expecting to put into our sewer. And
The
and
industrial
again,
waste
I know,
permit.
right, that's from I think that's from the cogeneration plant as far as the condensed waste.
Non-contact water.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Other items, Peter, that we can list here?
Well, I think the sewer flow is gonna be different than the water flow, because you're not sure what they're gonna use to supplement their cistern systems and irrigation. So I think we definitely need to know proposed water use, proposed sewer use, which will be definitely separate. Sewer, I'd like to differentiate and keep them separated between sanitary and processed or industrial waste, so that we make sure we have a clear defining line there. Because I believe we have the ability to say no to any processed waste, so worst case scenario, we can say, okay, we'll take your sanitary waste, we know what it is, we know where it's coming from, we know it's safe to the plant. Your processed or industrial waste, if the commission's not comfortable with it, if Veolia or our engineers are not comfortable with it, I believe you have the ability to say no based on what they're presenting you.
Right, and Peter, we have situations in town where there are people who are choosing to store and haul it off the site rather than put it into our system, so that, you know, they don't have to deal with our requirements. So that, you know, that's a possibility. Go ahead, Peter.
And I think right now, those are the key points to start with. Again, this is your initial meeting.
Yep.
They didn't come asking for approval tonight. It's hopefully this was a meet and greet, and here's our project. We know it's been in front of planning board. I'm sure we've all read about it and heard numerous different things about it. And this is the first time for Dan to represent VGG and discuss it with you guys specifically. My discussions with Dan, whether it was with him or with Southbridge and what the possibilities are for water, is pretty much the discussion that I just gave you, is the 3 points, is what is your water use gonna be? What is your sanitary sewer use gonna be? And if there is process, we need to identify it and we need to investigate it and see if it's something that we can even take without doing any harm to our treatment plant. So I think, and again, from where I'm sitting, I think those are the three key
They're all
points
good.
that I'm gonna focus on to make sure that we're protected. If the commission sees anything else or anything else comes up, please let me know and I can add that to the list, and we'll just keep on trying, again, keep our focus on where we need to keep it.
And just as a reminder is, again, this is from this seat, plan on obtaining your potable water from Old Worcester Road 8-inch line. Because getting it from Route 20 is gonna be tough. It's a long road. Not saying it's impossible, but just my recommendation, it's not from the board, it's only me. I would say Old Worcester Road is where your potable water should come from.
Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so in my mind, the biggest thing here is the fire protection system, the sprinklers, and like I stated, the entire building will be sprinkled per the state codes. That, I think, is gonna be a daunting task, because if you think about 1 million square feet, it's pretty big, and it's gonna require a lot of water. Typically, I think, looking at buildings, just from my experience in the city, they have to use or employ fire sprinkler, fire pump systems, you know what I mean, at the buildings, in order to get that pressure in time of need. My concern here would be for the residents on Old Worcester Road that are finally gonna get water in their 8-inch water main, because if these guys actually require a fire pump system to draw from that to make it work, if they're saying that system, those fire pumps have to be run twice a year for maintenance purposes to make sure that they're up and running and everything. And generally speaking, when they run, they wreak havoc on the base water system, turning up any and all material in the mains and things like that, and will really impact the residents that are on that line. So we'd just like to put it out there that,
Right,
that
yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna be a viable option for you, just a piece of information for you, okay?
Mr. Chair, my concern on that train of thought with prioritizing Old Worcester Road over Route 20, if we have a developer looking to come to town who's gonna activate and pressurize a mile or just over a mile of pipeline on Route 20 and get that functioning for us, I think it's something that we should look at, especially in part of just getting more of that water line activated so that a butter is on that water line will have access to water as well.
Well, just for reference, it's 31,004 gallons per mile of 12-inch pipe.
Correct, I believe it's just under a mile.
Okay.
My, again, rough calculations that I came up with was 20, from looking at Google Earth and mapping it from North Side Road to the property on
But
Route
that's-
20 was about 25,000 gallons of storage.
Okay. They're
So
just gonna
that's-
sit there.
Well, no, because they're gonna use, on the sheet, it says 5,000 gallons per day. And that's so that's pretty much gives them 5 days of water age from North Side Road to their property.
What do you,
So.
looking at this, I didn't see where there's any connection off the 8-inch to the building other than a hydrant loop.
It ties into the cistern, I believe. That if you look at the flow sheet, it shows 5,000 gallons per day.
I know what the flow sheet said, I
Yes.
was looking at the
Oh.
plan, it doesn't show any connection,
To what part of the building, sir?
any part of the building, off the 8-inch.
Yeah, so off the 8-inch, it should be connected to the fire suppression loop,
Yeah.
to the portions of the building that require sprinkling.
Right,
And as a supplementary supply to the reservoirs. That's the intent right now with that 8-inch line coming off the 12-inch line.
That's on the top left of those cisterns, Alex. It says proposed 8-inch connection to cistern. The top left corner of those 3 cisterns,
yeah,
where the 8 inches coming in. That's how they're gonna feed it off of that 8-inch line. Correct, Dan?
Exactly.
and, I'm sorry, Ed, what did you say it was per growing foot, square foot?
So, per growing square foot, it is a 1/4 gallon, okay, of condensate that will be produced.
Yeah,
So, for example, 1,000,000 square feet, it's gonna be 250,000 gallons. Currently, the grow facility in Worcester has 7,000 square feet of grow, and they have 2,000 gallons a day. Now, that's an actual number, because they have to deal with it.
but their acidity is,
And what happens is, when you have the condensate, then that's gonna be, typically condensate, has an acidity, issue.
But-
It's pH
Yeah,
is
that's
around
way
6.
We're not talking
I
about accepting
understand
that,
that.
correct?
I understand that, but you're talking about tying a public water system into a cistern that's stagnant and/or connected to possibly a cross-connection. Do some cross-connection history, such as Legionnaires. I just don't know how wise that is.
Even with backflow prevention?
Things fail.
Peter, good point. I think the point you're making is valid, that we as a commission should always be thinking about how do we enlarge the system, so, especially if the infrastructure is there, so more of our users can connect to it. I can count on my left hand if we turn the water on going east from North Side Road to where they're gonna connect. There's less than 5 people who possibly who could connect.
The industrial park is directly
Well,
across the
yeah,
street.
yeah, that's if they wanna connect. You can't, only if
I
they're
understand
building,
if,
only if they're
but-
building can we force people to connect. Again, it certainly is a good point. Maybe with our discussions, we could say is, we want you to do both at this time. And then we can make a choice of we go one way or the other. What I do know is that,
With fire suppression being one of the driving forces that's been mentioned, only one of these is available now to even possibly design from. So in order for them to move forward and design any type of system, they need to know what's available for actual flows. and any actual flow available on Old Worcester Road, if you don't allow them, so if you don't allow them to connect from Route 20,
Yep.
and you just want them to connect 8-inch off of Old Worcester Road for fire flows and for
Right.
water, there is no data there for them to design to.
There's no data off Route 20 either, that was my point
But
earlier.
if they disinfect, flush, pressurize that line, they can do a flow test and get that data in a month.
This is why the suppression experts are gonna come in and say, look, in order to do a system here, no matter how big the line is outside, you're gonna need storage, you're gonna need booster pumps. Because the big thing is the pressure's not there. It's just not there. I mean, up there on North Main Street, was the pressure, what, 45 pounds, maybe 50? Now you're gonna go downhill. Okay, so again, the way I figured out, there was 27 pounds of pressure. So that's gonna be an issue that their engineers gotta work out. And if they can come and sell it to us, but I do wanna remind everyone, it was just, I think it was last year, that a water bill, an outstanding water bill finally got taken care of after 2 years, as far as a blow-off situation goes. And that was a $47,000 bill. And, and again, to us little people, that's a lot of money. Maybe to your company, they'd be happy to pay that. But also is that if we activate that line and we get people to connect to it, and then all of a sudden, if something happens and your company's gone, now we stop using that usage, and then what do we do? Now the town's on the hook for the blow-off. So that's what we're looking at there.
That's a concern that we have to draw into our, like
Right,
Mr. Jennings said
right,
about our
right.
blow-off agreement, or
Yeah.
some type of agreement. But again, tonight's the first night. There's gonna be quite a bit of
Sure,
discussion
sure.
coming from here, and hopefully a lot more
But
information.
you're getting a good picture, Dan.
being presented.
This is extremely valuable to hear your perspectives on,
There's no reason to hold back.
Yeah.
You know, again, we're telling you what the hot points are. I think Ed has another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have one more point to make, and that would be with the fire system, is that we have to be very, very cautious as a town that we do not commit to using any kind of water for the fire system for this project. If for some reason we can't meet the needs. So for example, if there was a fire here and there were fatalities, and the sprinkler system didn't operate properly because the town didn't have enough water in their system and our system wasn't able to provide that,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure we're liable,
Yeah.
and that would be a crushing blow to us. So we need to make 100% sure that whatever goes on here has
Got it.
a factor of safety built in.
Go in the back, please.
Yes, John Smith, Bristol Hill Road. The point of putting a piece of pipe in the road, Route 20, is to connect to it. It goes beyond me. I know other boards talk about an industrial corridor going down Route 20, using the water. We have a chance to Mr. Bory's point, energize a section of this and have someone pay for it as like a betterment to the town for having the development into it. Why don't we just have them do it, really?
I can answer the reason why
Go
you
ahead.
wouldn't do it, and that's because what happens is you can meet a horse in water, but you can't make them drink. If you energize that line, all the businesses that are existing are already there, unless they need more water, okay, are not gonna go and spend the money, because it's a tidy sum of dough to go into Route 20 and tie into a water main and bring it all the way into your property to use. You're talking tens of thousands, if not more, to do that. Getting through sections of Route 20, there's a lot of ledge. You could be
Okay.
stopped in your tracks. I know as the inspector on this, the city project for the sewer main, we've hit ledge in a couple of spots that we spent a good month trying to get through. Fortunately, it was on the contractor time and not on the cities. So please put protections in here that cover us. That's what I'm asking you guys to do. Make sure that there's no loopholes, so that when, if this goes forward, great, but we do not want to be left holding the bag like what happened to the landfill project.
I just want to reiterate, we have no control over what they design for fire suppression.
I understand that, but
Okay.
my
It's up
point
to
is
building
that,
inspector.
That's fire department building inspector.
well, it's really, I think, that there's a certified sprinkler engineer that has to
Yes.
certify a system that will be designed, and it will tell you what you need, and then you need to meet that. And that's what I'm trying to say, is I don't understand what's taking so long with that. We should know that already.
Would you like to give us your list of questions, Ed? Would you like to get that to
Right,
Peter?
You know what, why don't I do that? I'll try to put them all in writing so they make sense,
Sure.
and send you guys the
If you wanna
list.
email them to me, I can
Sure,
get them out.
that,
That'd be great.
Yep.
Okay.
Oops, go ahead, sir.
Hi, John Duso, 153 Old Worcester Road. Just a couple questions concerning the water treatment system. Just a brief synopsis of, from start to finish. I guess it's gonna be reverse osmosis treatment. It's not going to be. That's the first question.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have shaken my head. I'm gonna try to be diligent about answering the commission's questions, not answering them directly.
Okay,
But it is
sorry.
not, I'm sorry, but it's not a reverse osmosis treatment that we're considering at this time.
Okay, so is it gonna be a media system, carbon bed? Could you just expound on what the water treatment system is gonna be? It doesn't have to be anything in great detail. I was just curious what the water treatment system briefly was going to be consisting of.
But just to be clear, Dan, is he referring to the treatment system, to where you're gonna
Tree
the
irrigation.
cooling towers?
Yep, cooling towers, irrigation, just for the whole system for VGG.
As far as, well, the cooling towers is one of the items that's gonna be coming into town sewer, and we're gonna need an industrial permit for that. So how is that gonna be done?
I'm sorry, I think I heard a few different questions.
I'm sorry, okay.
Yeah, So maybe the question about reverse osmosis came up.
Right.
Initially, we believed that we were gonna be using, or need to use reverse osmosis in order to remove the, particularly the fluoride from any incoming city water that would be required, the minimum draw that's required for us to take. And it would make sense for us to do that, to put the water in the reservoirs, to have the backup supply. Again, this is all based on presumptions of a scenario of using Route 20 and for one thing, and Old Worcester Road when it's ready for another. Since our engineers have looked at this, the makeup water of that Southbridge has provided, and determined that we likely do not need to use reverse osmosis to achieve the levels of fluoride that we want. They do have a proposed system, which I'm not qualified to even begin to discuss, but I can provide that information to the commission as part of this process of, but namely in that type of process does not have a wastewater discharge similar to reverse osmosis.
So, let me see if I get this squared, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Are you saying that there is a time that you would use town water for irrigating your plants?
Yes, sir.
There is. Okay, but that would be, what's the thought of gallons a day, a week, a month?
The way we propose to use the city water would be as a supplement to fill and maintain the reservoirs,
Okay.
the cisterns. So if we're, this time of year, absolutely none.
Right.
Probably we'd find other ways to use that
Okay,
water.
okay,
But
okay, got it.
in periods of drought, again, we believe that the new water coming into the plants could be up to 30,000 gallons a day. And if we were in an extreme condition, I suppose you might look at it that way.
Okay, so there is a possibility if you used a fairly large volume of water.
Well, 30,000 gallons, I defer to you if that's a very large quantity. It's
Me and my household,
probably-
it's a huge amount, but I mean, but for an industrial user, because we're gonna have one come online that uses more than that per day.
My point, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess just one more point. I believe Valley Green Grow is gonna be in front of the planning board Wednesday at 7 PM. They're gonna be discussing, utilities.
Sure.
Infrastructure, correct?
If I could add to that, so this week we'll be including discussions on utilities, natural gas, electrical infrastructure. We'll be having some, continuing this water discussion, maybe an update to them from this meeting. The following Wednesday, November 14th, we'll be getting into discussions about So some of the great questions that were asked tonight that might not be germane to this, but germane to other aspects of condensation water, what's happening with our internal loop inside the greenhouses as it relates to condensation loop, how that water gets recycled within the system.
Okay, so will you be doing that report, or will you include in that report new information that you get back from your engineers?
We'll have engineers prepared to present to those meetings. Yes, sir, I apologize, if I knew there was gonna be more technical questions, I would have brought some.
No need to apologize. You've done a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
But you-
gentlemen finished asking questions, or did we?
You know, I think my last question was, I just wanted to verify, so, for irrigation purposes, I have down 500 to 600 gallons of wastewater right now. I just wanted to make sure that that was the correct number that you gave before, 500 to 600 gallons being sent to the water and sewer treatment facility, correct? Is that what you stated before, earlier?
I had that coming from coolant constant, from
Okay,
coolant
but that's not the
condensate,
total amount.
not from irrigation.
No.
I didn't have any, as far as any discussions we've had, there's
I guess the
been,
bottom line is, I'm like you, I'm just trying to get down to the
Right.
bottom line of what that wastewater number is going to be.
so the only two
for
components,
everything.
the only two components I'm aware of for wastewater is
Yeah.
sanitary sewer,
Yeah.
which is anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 gallons per day
Understood.
based on 300 employees, which could be more if you include showers.
Sure.
And then Dan referenced 600 to 1,000 gallons per day from the coolant condensate. Correct?
Yes, sir, and to elaborate on that, the way the system's being designed, the engineer will be speaking to this on November 14th. All the water that's coming through our irrigation system is recaptured, recycled, and put back into the irrigation system to the point of the return flows, condensate water. Even as the plants get harvested, the waste material from the plant gets squeezed, drained, and that water is recaptured. That's very valuable water to the process. Is part of the retreatment of it to go back into makeup water. The pH is balanced, the nutrients are added in to get it to just the right levels that are needed for optimal plant growth
If I may, so
and hygiene.
what you squeeze out, what do you do with what's left? For instance, like, I mean, is that gonna be hemp? And is that gonna get carried away to some farm? Or is that gonna go into some landfill? Where does that go?
So we're proposing to run a anaerobic digestion process in sealed containers to transform. So by law, what's not sold, tracked and sold to registered patients or to individuals over 21 as adult use has to be disposed of by very strict regulations.
Okay.
One way is it can go to a landfill. Another way is for it to turn into an inert process, which is what we believe. We don't, our philosophy is not, this shouldn't go to a landfill. That seems silly.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Roger Cloutier, 17 Colburn Road. I got a question for the board, and maybe I've not heard correctly. I had heard at some point people couldn't tie into the sewer line because the plant was at capacity. Is that true, or is that just?
Some time ago it was.
But it's been expanded.
The moratorium has since been lifted on that, but,
Okay. So there isn't a cap on
yeah.
that any longer?
There is a cap.
Well, just to be
Yeah.
fair, if I may answer that, Roger, I think it had been probably 8 to 10 years ago, back prior to 2008, when we had that growth spurt in 2004, 5, 6, the board at that time felt that things was just going like wildfire, so they imposed a moratorium. So as time went on, it was determined that that moratorium was an overreach just because the economy just slowed right down. So there is still a moratorium in Charlton. The moratorium is defined as, from a residential point of view, is if there's a project that is over 10,000 gallons, then it's got to get, it needs the approval of Water and Sewer Commission. And if there's an industrial project coming in that's over 10,000 gallons, that as well needs to get approved by Water and Sewer. Because if we didn't have that in, If someone came in and said, look, we got 500 acres here, and we're gonna do 400 houses, and the sewer is available, and you got space at the plant, we wanna connect, which would then shut all the other people who are, who have sewer in front of their house but haven't chosen to connect, that would put us at a huge disadvantage. But on the other hand, is if we have the space available, we're obligated by statute to provide it. So with the moratorium that we have in place, gives us a little bit of latitude as far as a huge development coming. And also is, again, we have to constantly be looking at, as far as gallons go, we're safe with gallons, but as far as our loading goes, sometimes, we're almost at peak on some of the items. So it's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to overload the system.
Absolutely, no, we don't.
Failure and
No.
People can't tie in because it's full.
Correct, but on the other hand, is if the sewer's available, we can't, we've got to
can't
be
hold it
equitable to everybody, whether it's a 300-unit apartment house or a homeowner who just wants to, tie in.
So my point to that is that right now the developer's throwing out a number of 300 employees, and that's what, I have a concern about that. That's why I would like to see what the building occupancy capacity is. Because again, that is the number that eventually this building could take for capacity. Because I mean, what's the town gonna do if all of a sudden it turns out to be 500 employees? And now all of a sudden we're exceeding the 10,000 and we can't handle it. Now what are we gonna do?
Well, Mr. Chair, I would envision you enter an MOU, much like you did with Treehouse, where you limit a certain number of gallons, and you also limit what they're able to send you with limits.
Oh, that would be great.
So rather than just guessing at personnel, I think we would kind of weigh out both, take a hard look at everything, and come to an agreement on estimated actual flow, and set maybe a number that's acceptable to everybody. And then also have parameters of what that flow will consist of at the same time. So if they exceed it, there's repercussions.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? We all in? You off the hook finally?
Thank you for your questions.
Yeah, go ahead, sure.
Mr. Chair, we did post you for the planning board meeting in case more than 2 of you happen to show up on Wednesday. So if you'd like to attend and kind of, because water and sewer will be being discussed at that hearing. I believe the hearing board, the planning board process is each hearing is going to be dedicated to a certain component of the site plan. So if it's not that meeting, if the component's not part of the hearing for that date, then it's not really going to be discussed. So I believe this Wednesday, the 7th, has to do with water and sewer is on the agenda, so.
Are you attending?
I will be attending, yes.
You have more?
Pardon?
Oh, I thought you raised your hand again.
No, sorry.
Go ahead, so. Well, I guess it's all in, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. And if anyone's interested in copies of what was given out tonight, we'll scan these tomorrow, and we can just email them to you.
That'd be great, and I will send you a list of questions.
Great, thank you. I just need someone's copy.
Yeah. You're gonna send it to us?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Okay. Thank you.
Hurry up. The Catch-One Properties, 9 Trolley Crossing, was we up
Yes.
to there?
Yeah, Mr. Charcheroni's here tonight.
Oh, here we go.
Unfortunately, this just came in late Friday afternoon. Reviewed it today with the town of Southbridge. This is their proposed blow-off agreement for the property at 9 Trolley Crossing Road. As you remember, Mr. Charcheroni bought the WSP Cells building, and he's renovating it into doctor's offices. Previously, the board has given him approval to extend the water line from H. Putnam Road Extension to his property at 9 Trolley Crossing Road. In his discussions with Southbridge, in order to get that water line permitted and approved, they're requesting that the town of Charlton enter into a water blow-off agreement with him, identifying what would be required by Mr. Charcheroni if, again, and the agreement, the language in the agreement is consistent with our language that is in the IMA with Southbridge. So, as you read it, you'll see that the main indication is test results indicate high heterotrophic plate counts greater than 500, or chlorine residual is less than 1 part per million. Currently, that's what the town of Southbridge does now, at the town hall, where they'll go, they'll sample, and they will check the chlorine residual. And if it gets below 1 part per million, they will open the hydrant and start the blow-off. Currently, the agreement now is with Harrington Hospital. They pay for that blow-off. So the town of Southbridge is proposing we do the same thing at Mr. Chartier's property at 9 Trolley Crossing, where, because he's extending it so, no, not so far, but about 800 feet, I believe, of
About 1,500 feet from that hydrant.
8-inch main, 6.
8-inch. And again, this, I think it'll be a formality within the year, 'cause I think enough people will tie into it, where that number becomes a moot point. But, you know, for the town of Southbridge request between us and Charlton, we had come up with this letter for you.
Have you talked to any of the other people that might tie in, like Kamasi or the bank?
Oh, yeah, I've, well, MTM Molding next door.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently waiting for the new owners of Howlett Lumber to go through their process. They would be tying in. So, just with that alone, would be more than enough to flush that system out.
Okay.
But as when I was previously before this board, I had made the agreement with, I had made the point then that I would do this flushing at our cost. So this is just an extension of that agreement.
And right now, Southbridge will test up to 2 times per month.
Correct.
Anybody got anything from him? Mr. Cacciaroni?
We're only dealing with this right now,
Correct.
correct? Okay,
Yes, this blow-off agreement.
okay, good.
I did not run this by any of our legal. Chris McClure is working with the applicant, so he could not review it on our behalf. The town of Southbridge has reviewed it, and it satisfies their concerns. If the board wishes for me to get legal approval or to have someone else review it, let me know, and I can do that after this meeting.
This is similar to the Harrington Hospital one?
Well, this is, the language is straight out of our intermunicipal agreement with Southbridge.
Yep.
It mirrors that as what the requirements are for the blow-off, for water quality.
And if we do become a consecutive water supplier, all of this just transfers to Charlton.
Well, then it's our responsibility to provide
Correct.
adequate water, so correct, we will be doing the chlorine residual test, and if there is, we'll be charging him for the blow-off.
Correct, right,
So the
okay,
agreement will survive and stay with us.
right, right. And again, we're at the beck and call of Southbridge here. So if they're happy with it, then we should be all set.
Okay.
How many of these do we need to sign, Peter?
I think you just make a motion to enter into it, and then one, there's only a signature signed for one commissioner. You could probably just vote
the
to
chairman
approve
sign
it
it.
and have the chairman sign it, sure.
Okay,
Make a motion, we accept the agreement as printed.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on it? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain. January on ayes, 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
you all set?
We'll get that signed, I'll get it over to you tomorrow.
Okay, just,
Yes.
I'll touch base.
Thank you, Nick.
thank you.
Thanks for waiting.
Okay.
Up next, we have propane supply.
Yes, so at the last meeting, we discussed the propane supply. Currently, we're getting propane delivered from Osterman under the state bid list, which is the average Monday Selkirk, New York price plus .2459 per gallon. The town has entered into a fixed price with Charlton Oil at $1.50 per gallon. I know at the last time we discussed this, I wasn't sure if it was a not to exceed or fixed, but it is a fixed price. So, just trying to get some direction if the board would like to consider switching from Osterman. Previously, the town had a fixed price agreement with Osterman, I believe at $1.28 or $1.29 per gallon, so it was a good price. That contract expired. Osterman did not want to renew and enter into another fixed price contract, so if we want to stay with Osterman, we can at the state bid price, which is the Selkirk price plus a fixed amount. So it's going to fluctuate or we can enter into a fixed price contract with Charlton Oil at $1.50 per gallon. Seeing what our usage is and what our prices have been throughout the last year with Osterman, they fluctuate in the summertime to anywhere from $1.20 to anywhere upwards. Right now, we're probably right around $1.51, I believe, was the daily price. So it'll probably average out to be around $1.50 by the time we ride the wave of getting through winter when it's probably more, which is when we use more, because it's mostly for heat. So,
What's anybody wanna do?
I would be looking for some definitive numbers of what the gas prices were last year.
so.
What they were,
Unfortunately, we were in the fixed,
yeah.
I guess we could look back at Selkirk and I could get you that data
Yeah,
of what they were for last year.
okay.
But
Because things can
it's
go
not
crazy
consistent year to year is the
Right,
is
right.
the
Can rise or
problem.
fall
In
regardless.
February, it can be $4, you know?
So, that's, the unanticipated prices, it's like trying to guess what gas is gonna be. Austin, keep it cold. Summertime is our lowest usage because we don't run the heat.
Right,
We
just
just
like
use it,
everybody
we
else.
just use it for hot water.
Yeah, yeah.
So we can fix the price at $1.50 and go with Charlton Oil and know that. Or we can take the chance and go with Osterman, and like I said, right now it's up, I think our previous price was $1.46, and now our current price was $1.51.
How long is this contract?
I think the town has it for a year,
1 year.
so yes.
Anybody, anything?
I don't have a problem going with it.
We're on hold for now, again, when do we need to make up our mind?
We don't have to, we can, if there's no change, we will
We'll
stay with Osterman,
Osterman?
and the price will be what the price is. If you want to change, then just let me know, and we own the tank, I'll just tell Osterman not to deliver, and we'll get Charlton Oil on the bi-weekly delivery schedule.
Well, it's certainly nice knowing our costs, but I'm not so sure that, I don't know if there's gonna be any steep increases in the future. Actually, no one
But
does, but.
The increases are relative to mainly, temperature and supply. But as far as summertime goes, it's gonna be low no matter what, but we don't use much in
Yeah.
the summertime. That's probably what, 10-15% of our use?
Yeah, maybe 20, because we don't go from probably June right through till the end of August, beginning of September without a delivery, so.
This one was June, and then September 26th, we have another delivery.
Yeah. I'd go with the 150.
Okay.
That's what I would do. I'd make a motion that we go with Charlton Oil on the fixed price.
A second, okay, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I abstain because I deal with both companies, so I keep my nose out of it.
I deal with them. That's it.
Superintendent review, we are all here tonight. We're going to do this on our own, and have Jessica come in or something like that? How is that gonna be handled?
I think if you're willing to discuss it tonight, you can do it tonight and we can get it done. If you'd rather have Jessica here to walk you through the process, I don't,
It's up to the board.
I'm fine finalizing it this evening. Anyone else's?
I believe in the packet, I forwarded you my self-evaluation as well as a blank evaluation form. And again, I'm not sure how in-depth the board wants to get or what type of discussion you want to have, but if you want to meet one-on-one and go over some of this, I'm willing to do that, or if you want to just throw some comments out there and we can put them together and have the chairman sign off on it and put it in my file, then we can do that as well.
I know myself, I've had a few comments here, and but mostly positive, if not all positive. And as far as the contract that we entered into back in October of 2017, it pretty much lays out as far as any monetary adjustments here. And then do we then follow, I recall with Steve, we followed the percentage of increase of the union contract of the town employees?
I fall into this position falls into the personnel bylaw, and the annual increases under the personnel bylaw is the average of any completed union contract for that year.
Which
So-
means what?
So if the police get 2.5%, if the contract is completed and it hasn't expired, and police got 2.5% this year, highway got 2, and fire got 2.5, and then the clerical union got 2, I'd get the non-union personnel who fall under the personnel bylaw, get the average of those 4, which would be 2.25%. So I believe in January, July 1st,
He's been practicing.
we received a 2% increase.
Yeah.
Which was the average.
Okay.
So I have received the $2,000 salary adjustment when I received my 2 drinking water licenses that were required.
So we can sub you out, can't we?
Maybe?
Yeah. Now, Peter, are we to do another contract?
No. This is just this is an appointment letter with some criteria set for my first year.
Okay, and also it sets your probation period up
Yes.
as well,
Yep.
which has since expired.
Correct.
Okay,
We voted on that, right?
Yes.
okay, all right. And by you being on the it's a non-contract, so if we wanted to relieve you of your duty, there's
I'm still
no.
protected under the personnel bylaw.
you-
I'm through the probationary period,
Okay,
so I'm still protected by the personnel bylaw. I may not have a contract per se,
yeah,
but the
so,
personnel bylaw has certain protections for non-union personnel.
which says what?
Progressive discipline. Sure, if
Oh, okay.
I am negligent and you
Yeah.
find me to be
Right,
negligent
yeah,
and follow
Grossly
the
negligent, yeah,
correct discourse,
yeah, okay,
then yes, progressive discipline, we could go through that process and you could
Good.
fire me or whoever's in this position. Gross misconduct, yes, you could probably let me go immediately. I don't believe I've done that.
no. Okay,
Make a motion in any way, or?
I think that,
So as part of my self-evaluation, the purpose of this form, I believe, is to set goals annually. To try and set 3 goals per personnel to track and to make progress throughout the year. So when the following year comes up and you do this, you can say, okay, last year we set these 3 goals, did you obtain them? And that way then that's the starting point from where we go, from how you do the evaluation. When I first got hired in last year, we talked about doing goals, and the discussions that we had, the matrix was still being used quite a bit. So I said, we'll reprioritize the matrix and use that as a list of priorities for me to focus my time on, rather than setting specific goals. So on the first page of the review, I itemized some of the items from the matrix, such as facilitate the water master plan, which is still ongoing, that's still going. We have had that grant renewed for FY19, so that's, I think, is still moving forward rather well. Oversee construction projects, another task that's still ongoing. We have Berry Corner Road, we have the school loop, we have the pump station, and the 2 storage tank projects going on. That's still ongoing, that we're still overseeing. Another task was to facilitate with the grants. I've been doing that with the Water Master Plan grant and the other 2 grants that are available, as well as finding funding from the National Grid, from the town grant to do some upgrades to the plant for lighting and stuff like that. Sewer billing issues were a rather large kind of item on the matrix that was getting kicked back and forth, and I believe most of those have been resolved.
Did you mention too, the new bills are coming out, the 8th?
We can mention, yes.
Well, just so, you know, while we're on the subject
Yep.
of sewer billing.
Yeah, so sewer bills have been imported. The commitment report is in your signed folder, and those bills will be getting mailed today.
Okay.
So that went rather smoothly, once we got Southbridge.
And that's the 10th.
I'm sorry?
They were uploaded, over the weekend, and Joanne had to approve them.
I just had seen that in the billing, but,
The commitment report?
right, as far as this quarter goes, is this one of our, as far as the cycle?
Is this one of our heavier?
Yes, that's
larger?
my question.
Yes,
Okay.
but they seem to be consistently getting to be there, so.
But there was also that 2-week lapse, remember?
Yes, so it's off by 2 weeks because we couldn't read because our meter reader equipment was not here in time, or then our new equipment
2
wasn't
weeks out or
functioning.
2 weeks before? 2 weeks out?
2 weeks out, 2 weeks longer.
All right, okay. That's
So.
about 10%.
It is about 10%, and it was consistent about 10 to 15% higher for some accounts. So you don't think 2 weeks would make a big difference, but it does.
Yep.
So typically, you set goals, or we set the goals every year that we'd like you to achieve, and then rate you yearly on the fiscal year. You came in, it was off timing-wise.
Yep.
So, are we looking to get on track with that schedule and say, maybe it's at the halfway point, readjust, set new goals, so that come fiscal year?
Well, I think if you, again, part of this review is part of my appointment letter, is that the review will be done. I think moving forward, I think the reviews, again, for myself, for Steve, for Sue, should be done on a fiscal year basis, and that the commission should also kind of set their own goals as well on what they want to see take place. And what you set for goals trickles down to the rest of us, to what we have to, again, prioritize our time spent on. So I would think that we get through this, and then we start the goal-setting process. Again, it takes some time to really, get those ideas out there, get those set, and have those ideas come and get in place for July 1st moving forward for, I guess that'd be fiscal year 2020. And then do reviews that following year based on those goals and tasks that you set there. Rather than do this now, set another short-term goals for the next 6 months, and then kind of have to do the process all over again. Or if you want to just do a short-term goals, like, I'm fine doing it either way, but it's kind of a lot of work to set goals for just 6 months.
I think if we look back in the last 12 to 14 months, I mean, a lot of things have gotten done.
Oh, in
In,
my short time, right?
and they've gotten done efficiently, so.
I filled out what I thought I should do on mine. Is this something we just pass in and that's part of your folder or file, or?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Again, I think if you want, if anyone has any written comments, I can take them all, I can give them to Jessica, have her compile them, put them on, consolidated onto
Okay.
one sheet, and that way there you maybe present that to you for final approval at our next meeting, to say, okay, these were all the comments, this is what it looked like, she'll compile it, you guys can just vote it, someone will sign it, and it'll go into
Yeah.
my employee file.
It's really not approval, it'd be action, if in fact we wanted to take any action based on,
We have to,
those-
you'd approve.
Yeah.
You'd approve what Jessica compiled
yeah,
as far
yeah,
as the
yeah.
evaluation
Yeah.
form itself.
Jen, did you have something to add to this? I know you.
I filled it out as well, I thought we were gonna just briefly discuss it.
Yeah.
But if we wanna just all put our comments together and send them over, we can do that as well.
HR, that'd be fine.
You wanna do it that way?
I thought I brought mine, but I ended up bringing a blank one rather than the filled out one.
Well, then we'll continue on to the superintendent report.
Just real quick, before we go too far.
Yeah, sure.
Part of the review includes a salary review. I just don't wanna skip that totally. There's a couple other water sewer superintendent positions being advertised. I think my current salary is about 74,000. I started at 70, got the increase, the $2,000 per year increase for my licenses, and then the 2% increase for the annual increase. So the positions that are being advertised are anywhere from, one range is 80,000 to 105,000. And the second, in the town of Medway is looking for one from 67,000 to 89,000. So, they say you can't get what you don't ask for, so I just wanted to put that out there, and seeing that I am on the.
What's the other town?
One is the town of Medway, the other one, Walpole.
Oh, that would be a long commute.
And now these are,
105,000,
these are communities with operating systems.
correct,
Yeah.
probably, yes.
Okay.
Where do you fit into our HR chart? Do you know?
In that category, I'd have to look that up. I believe
Okay.
I'm kind of in the lower end of that, towards the middle for my grade.
Okay.
So, but I'll get that information for you as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're good where we are. I think we've made a real good investment in this area. Okay, and now we need to get a little return on it, all right? And like I said, this is the investment we made, which was the education. And good for you, because you had to pass the tests. So, that's where I'm sitting. Because when you think about the day we hired them, to where we are now, it's what is that? Is that more than it's about, let's say it's about a 7% raise, 8% raise from when we hired you,
No,
the base salary, to what the addition, to go from 70 to 74
it's 4,000, so that's,
percentage.
I suppose to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's not a bad,
No.
it's not a bad hit.
No.
Yeah, and we want to be fair. We want to be fair. And,
Okay.
I'm only
So-
one person here,
Oh.
okay?
Yeah, no, I'd like to see where you
I'll
fit in
bring
the
that
range
classification plan
of the
and see where it is.
classification.
Yeah.
If you can also give us those other numbers you provided us with, if we can compile all of the comments.
Yeah.
And we'll be back here in 10 months, correct?
No,
What's your anniversary?
well, again, this.
It's October, isn't it early October?
Yes, but this doesn't have to be done on my anniversary. Moving forward,
Okay.
I propose that we do it as part of the fiscal year when you set your goals.
Okay, so it could be earlier than that.
Again, but every year is not necessarily the time to do a salary
Yeah.
review. I think the salary review now, this time, is because it's specifically mentioned in my appointment letter. After this point moving forward, I don't think I get a bite at the apple every year, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. That's why because it's mentioned in that appointment letter for a
Okay,
salary
okay.
review, that's why I'm bringing it up now. Come July 1st next year, I'm not gonna say, well, I'm gonna get this 2% cost of living increase, but I want more. That's not gonna happen every year.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just part of your initial appointment.
Correct, I
Yes.
started on the lower end of the spectrum because of my experience in this seat and because I didn't have the licenses. Hopefully that you'll agree that I've kind of proven myself over the last year with my ability to get the
Very
job
much.
here done.
Very
And
much.
because of that, again, you advertised this position at 70,000, I believe, to 103,000.
Yeah.
So now with my qualifications.
Some of us did that. I don't think all of us did that.
Some,
but I-
now with my experience and
I
my
know I did.
qualifications, I
Yeah,
no
yeah.
longer fall on that lower
Yeah,
end of the
yeah.
spectrum, that's
Yeah,
all.
That we paid
So-
for.
You did.
I'm sorry, Peter.
That's what you're there for.
Yeah, you know me the longest, I'm being a pain to you,
That's what
but
you're there for.
it's okay, it's all right.
So, again, we can rediscuss it,
Yeah.
when I have some more information.
At any time, you could come back to us and say, I just come back from, where is it, Milford? Medway, and say, hey, look, they offered me the job.
Yeah.
I say, well, either, maybe we'll give you something to reconsider, or
Right, well, no, I can,
get you a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and,
okay. Superintendent's report. The very corner road, the Ludlow Constructions, they're continuing to struggle with ledge on H Foot Road. They're still coming at it from both directions. From the town of Southbridge side, they're blasting. They have rock splitters there blasting anywhere from 200 to 300 feet per day. They come in the next day and they chew through that, and they're ready to have the next 200 to 300 feet blasted again. So they're kind of playing leapfrog, that whole part. Coming from the Berry Corner Road side, they've just been trying to hammer through the ledge, and it's really slowed them down. They made it to the gas line crossings today. The first gas line crossing that they hit is sitting right on ledge, and they have to go 2 feet below it. So, they have some work to do.
What's their average per day?
I do not, off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm gonna say probably 200 to 300 feet per day. Because the other crew that's trying to hammer the ledge has not been moving. They've been digging out and filling in the same trench day after day, because they hit some pretty hard rock.
Do you know if that information's consistent with the initial exploratory
The borings?
testing? No, but they actually hand dug under those gas lines, or backtracked under them, right, initially? To
They-
pre-test.
They did go out there and do, I'm not sure what those reports showed,
Okay.
off the top of my head. They did go out there and do digging. They had, I think it was PRP Construction go out there and hand dig around those to see what was there. But,
They put any corrosion preventers on our main? No?
on our main,
No. Gas company's not requiring it?
I don't think they've gotten that. Again, they just
Would've been in the
uncovered it
plans. It
today.
would've been in the plans, Peter.
Oh, I'll have to look into that. So they're working on that now. The Route 169 pump station, the foundation for the pump station has been de-watered, and RH White's finally been able to get that base somewhat up to grade, so that it's not a puddle anymore. They've been filling it with stone and gravel and doing their compaction tests every 18 inches to 2 feet. They're hoping to have that foundation in the near future, so that way there they can get that site done and just wait for the pump station to be built and get delivered. They've been working at the 2 tanks as far as installing the electrical conduits going to the tanks for the mixers and the SCADA. And those trenches should be done and backfilled this week, so that those portions of that project are moving forward. The school loop, as you can see, Albany's construction is moving up Masonic Home Road. They should be up to the overlook tomorrow. After they get there, they just have an 8-inch stub to run up to the overlook's property, an 8-inch stub to run into the Meadowbrook, I believe that's the name of the road, for the elderly housing. And then just run a couple of 6-inch laterals for hydrants. Other than that, they're gonna, Kleinfelder is in the process of talking with the abutters to try and figure out service locations and where they want them brought onto the property. And hopefully all that work will be done this construction season, so that the remainder of that roadway can settle and be paved all at the same time next year. As part of the water line extension to the police station, Chris McClure provided an estimate to us of approximately $72,000. Albanese Brothers provided an estimate also that was $107,000. So Chris is in the process of reviewing the 2 of them to see where the discrepancies are and see what's going on. If the price is not consistent with what Chris provided, I'm not sure the cost is worth having the water line extended at this time. And talking to Robin, there's no extenuating circumstances at the police station that require them to have water at this time. And if they need to in the future, if the public safety complex building moves forward, they'll just extend that all at once at that time. So, as far as that goes. Masonic Home Road, the construction, Albanese Brothers Construction did close the road. Day 1 construction, they tried to do traffic one direction at a time, and then that was pretty tight once they got through the initial intersection. Then they tried to make Masonic Home Road one direction where traffic could flow, I guess that would be south towards the center of town, and it was closed heading north of Masonic Home Road, so people were detoured. When they got up past the center of town where it gets narrow on Masonic Home Road, they were trying to hammer through the ledge, there wasn't really enough room to have that single lane traffic going by the excavator. And when they were loading the dump trucks in that available lane, that the road was closed. So they talked to the police department, and the road's been closed for the last few days. So Masonic Home Road is closed for through traffic. And they should be done there by the end of this week with everything, and moving on to Old Worcester Road next week. So we're gonna update that information on the website and on the police department's Facebook page, where Old Worcester Road will be closed for through traffic, and there'll be detours around there when they start heading down that way.
I guess my comment on that road being closed is, have they finished the extension up to the entrance to the Masonic Home?
It should be done by the end of this week.
That's 4 more days.
Well, barring, they hit rock again today, so
Well,
barring,
yep.
depending on what they hit
They-
and what we get for weather.
I don't mean to be combative,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's like, you know, people are being inconvenienced here with the road closed. And you're telling me over on the other side of town, going up towards the golf course, they're doing 300 feet a day.
Because they're blasting.
Okay, well, and then if they're doing 200 feet a day with the hammer, what's going on here?
They're not doing 200 feet a day with the hammer,
How many doing? 20?
possibly 1 or 2 sticks.
Because that's what it
depending
seems
on-
like what's happening up here.
No,
And-
they've done, I'll get you their daily reports, but they've averaged a decent amount on Masonic Home Road.
I was there around 2:30. Again, I was just down the street, just talking to the police officer, and not a bunch of trucks, I didn't see any excavators moving around. It seemed like, why isn't at least one lane of traffic open?
Well, 2:30, they were probably cleaning up and getting ready to open the road up. They're probably
Well, they
filling the
usually knock
trench,
off at
compacting.
3:30.
No, before
They,
that,
they
because of the
they probably
buses.
knock off earlier than that for traffic reasons.
Do they allow the buses to go through?
No, it's easier for the buses. I've talked to Nancy at First Student,
Yeah,
and it's just easier
yeah.
for them to go down to North Main Street and head in that way.
And I guess the other point or comment would be is if they got the road closed, why aren't they doing laterals right now at the same time?
Because they have one crew that's just doing the main installation.
I don't, you know, I know as an owner, if I was an owner, I wouldn't want to hear, I only got one crew. Go hire another crew, because in the meantime, you know, you're spending all the extra money for,
They're not gonna test laterals, Rob.
you're getting all kinds of extras here as far as the police duty, not it's an extra, but again, having the policeman there, but the big thing is inconvenience.
Yes.
If you're gonna have the road closed, it's an inconvenience. How many inconveniences are you gonna have? I'm just trying to speak for the people out there who are saying, finally gonna fly home and go up Masonic Home Road, and bing, you get there and you gotta take a left and go through Trolley Crossing and up and around, so.
Right.
Just trying to be an advocate, that's all.
It should be done sooner than later.
Okay.
So meter reads, again, meter reads were done, and actually billing is completed, so as stated before, the bills, the commitment report's there. The bills will be going out tomorrow. Carpenter Hill Road, Jerry was able to make the repairs to those relief pipes from the Ripley dams on our sewer lane heading down Carpenter Hill Road last week, so that's done and completed before the season changed, so.
What about any other investigation on Carpenter Hill Road?
Waiting, I know we talked about having our staff go and pop manhole covers. They have not had time to do that yet. I'm still waiting on a proposal from Paul Rodman, who did our I&I study on what he thinks we should do. I haven't gotten that yet to
Yeah,
present to
he
you.
was supposed to have that.
I haven't gotten a proposal from him on what he recommends. The water grant,
Excuse me, Pete, just on the, was Jerry happy with what they found and what they corrected?
I think so. He didn't-
Okay, all right, good. No,
It's done, and
that's another
I-
one of my travel routes.
Yeah.
I was going by and the guys are doing a nice job.
It's done, and I didn't get any complaints, so yeah, I don't think he had any real issues. The water grant, I'm moving forward with the grant application, trying to nail down an appraiser to get that information done, because that is a key component to that. I've talked to Beta, they're gonna help me with some components of the application as well. As discussed when Peter Newton was here about setting up a follow-up meeting with the DEP, I reached out to Muriel Stone and finally heard back from her last week. We're gonna try and set something up for later this week or earlier next week, to talk about Buffinville and what our proposed next steps are, and get her input and some other people from her office to say yes or no. What you're doing is is a good direction to go. Part of that's also gonna be to, while I'm there, try and talk to her about this grant application, see if we can get some support from her or somebody in DEP to give us some type of letter of support for purchasing that property. And also try and just give her an update of what's going on with all of our construction projects, and then lastly, talk to her about what the steps are to become a consecutive water supply. Fill her in on what we've had done with the water rate study, the discussions we've been having with Southbridge, and just let them know that we're still considering that, and just see what they have to say about that as well. So hopefully it'll be a fruitful meeting. We'll get some good input from them to just keep everything moving forward.
Peter, include me in on that meeting if you would, please.
I will. I'll just send an email. As long as there's only 2 of you going, it should be fine.
You have any updates on that little house on, with the illegal tie-in?
No, I was able to reach out to the owner, and she said that she's super busy right now. She just bought the house. She doesn't have any funding. She works out east, and when she's not as busy, she'll allow us access to maybe have someone camera the main, if we like to camera her, connect her lateral if we choose to, just to make sure it wasn't stuck, there's no problems there. Other than that, I have told her that whenever, hopefully she's able to sooner than later come in and purchase a meter so she can go on metered billing. And she's currently being billed now as a regular user, single-family home, flat rate.
Okay.
I told her the board hasn't made a decision on what they wanted to do about the past usage at this time. It's still out there, and that'd be up to you guys to kind of make any final determinations. So. But she's aware that the sewer bill is coming.
Okay. I think that the main access, the main point for me is still the cameraing up the line and
Yeah.
making sure that system's all right.
So, again, right now, she said, whatever she does for work, it's her busy time of year. She's gone early, she comes back late. When, hopefully after the first of the year, she said that won't be the case. I'll touch out, if there's no real, I guess, urgency, I'll just wait till after the first of the year. I'll reach out to her again and say, hey, we're still here. We'd still like to get in and camera the line if possible.
Well, I understand that someone's busy, but I think they should, being they're in the wrong, we're not.
Okay.
I don't know, just, that's my perspective on it, is at least say, you can be available this day, whether it's the 2nd, the 3rd,
Okay.
if it's gonna be pushed out that long.
Yeah, I'll get back in touch with her and tell her it's a priority.
Do we know the prior owner?
Yeah. Do I personally?
Has anyone ever talked to the prior owner?
No. The prior owner purchased the property in 2010.
Okay, fine.
I,
I think if you get the
my gut
closing
tells
disclosure
me
statement.
the person before that is the one who probably made the connection.
No,
Because I believe when this,
I don't, you know, I hear where you're coming from, Russ, this is, you know, someone made an illegal connection here.
Well, it's not the fact that it's an illegal connection, it's a question of how the connection was made, I think.
Well,
Is
yeah,
the connection
that's what I
right?
guess,
I mean,
yeah,
did they
yeah.
just, you know, I mean, I doubt it's the source of all I and I in the town, but still, it's,
I can't get over that there were lawyers involved here, and they, you know, they knew that there was a sewer connection, and there was no, on the certificate of municipal liens, there was no statement of the sewer bill ever paid. Baffles me.
cash buyer dropped the ball. Who cares?
Yeah,
They don't,
yeah.
right?
Finish up, Peter.
all right, last thing I have is Southbridge is gonna be flushing water mains this week. Depending on weather, they may be doing some during the day if it's gonna be cold at night, so they don't have to worry about icing. But probably the middle of this week, they're gonna start flushing.
Was there any issue in front of City Power? I saw 2 trucks there today. They weren't doing anything, but the 2 trucks. were there.
Southbridge was?
Southbridge Water Department, yes.
I have to ask if they were messing with the PRV.
Again, they were just in their trucks.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Somebody got a final motion here?
Motion to adjourn for our next meeting, which is
November 19th.
November
Do I have a
19th.
second on that, please?
Second.
All
I'll
in
let
favor?
Roger come.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
When's your pizza guy coming in?